On April 1st, we sent humanity toward the moon for the first time in over 50 years. Like then, this is an American accomplishment. And while you'll find few areas where your resident atheist or secular progressive is more arrogant than the field of scientific achievement, space travel is and has often been a religious and spiritual endeavor. In December, the month of Christ's birth, in 1968, Apollo 8 became the first humans to orbit the Earth. They were Americans, and they were also Christians. On December 24th, 1968, during a live broadcast from the moon, they read from Genesis, verses 1 through 10.
In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep. And the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. And God said, "Let there be light."
And now we sit over half a century later, just like many soldiers throughout history have remarked that there are no atheists in foxholes. Astronaut Victor Glover of Artemis II remarked that there are no atheists on the top of rockets. I agree. As much as it seems there is a world spiraling out of control these days, we have much to be thankful for. And while we don't all get to be astronauts, we don't all get to look back on Earth to see the perspective of our planet from space, we do all have control over our own attitudes. No dooming. We're actually a lot closer to turning this civilization around and giving ourselves a chance in the future than you think. Earlier this week, I came across an article on Substack that led me to write this note here. To summarize, the article laid out the doomed future for liberalism as a battle between the so-called post-liberals, which the piece identified as led by the Catholic integralists and figures like Vice President J.D. Vance, and the liberals who saw the project as failed and in need of a 21st century renewal. I have a third perspective and proposal, though. Liberalism actually has succeeded. And it is the success of liberalism and the erosion of the traditional world that has given us this moment of great crisis and crossroads. This view has even more profound implications on the liberal philosophy. The moment the football was spiked and the end of history was declared, liberalism's supposed triumph became the beginning of its undoing and its defeat. What if instead of liberalism coming out of the Enlightenment, out of Christendom, and getting outsized credit for the American founding and subsequent 250 years of not just America's success, but the successes of the Western world, what if instead of all that, liberalism was simply a beneficiary that received outsized credit of something that stood on the moral bedrock of tradition? It was the traditional world and the families that built it that liberalism has taken credit for. And now with tradition eroded, liberalism has been exposed. Liberalism would certainly like to renew itself this century, but the only way that it could is if we return to tradition. But some good news on that front. For the first time in years, the percentage of Americans identifying as Christians has rebounded upward. Indeed, we're seeing a flurry of articles this week in the media talking about how young people, especially young men, are returning to the pews. And this is what I think our best chance is. This goes beyond mere political victories, electoral triumphs. There is nothing stopping any of us individually from leading our families back into the pews, leading ourselves back there as well. If the packed pews and seats at St. Joseph's and Greenwich Village are any indication, a return to tradition is possible even in places like New York City. The secular world has simply exhausted itself. COVID-19 was perhaps the most obvious example of the failures of the secular world and the political and media forces that upheld it. That the tired old order is waning is no longer in doubt. The question before us becomes, what are we going to build? What are we going to do next? I'm Troy Olson, Army veteran and co-author of The Emerging Populist Majority. This has been a CityCon presentation of Civilization Itself.